Texas is a grand and special place, from the Rio Grande to the Red River.
You can feel its magic, and when you leave, you carry that feeling with you.
I'll tell you what makes this place special. The wide open spaces, the cold, fresh water of the springs and the rivers.
This landscape is one of the most diverse on Earth. The wildlife, the plant life, rivers, canyons, beaches, pine forests, and deserts, all of it amazing.
And Texans themselves are just as impressive.
Texans are big and bold, and we're very proud of our home state.
Every day, many of them are boots on the ground, hands in the dirt, working to make Texas better in all aspects.
When you look out and see this kind of beauty, and you think about the importance of caring for this landscape, I think it can be challenging to also think about economic prosperity. But the thing is, we can pursue both.
This is not a case of either or. This is a case of balancing the needs of people, industry, and Mother Nature.
The population in Texas is expected to go from 30 million to 50 million by 2050. The decisions we make now are going to be very important to the future of our state.
Texas has one of the world's largest economies that includes oil and gas, tech, manufacturing, agriculture, and transportation. Growth is good, but it also means stress on natural resources like water. And it increases the demand for energy development.
The big question is, how do we take care of our natural resources, our beautiful landscapes, and also provide opportunities for prosperity, all at the same time?
That's an idea that was once pretty foreign. We were led to believe that conservation and industry were on two opposing sides, mutually exclusive from one another.
That's the old model, and it doesn't work. You've got to have a new path forward.
There is a balance that can be achieved that could work for everybody.
Texans understand what's at stake. They're ready to take action.
But the glue has got to be there. You need a team that can bring all sides together, get them speaking the same language, and then lead them.
Since 2011, that team has been Texan by nature. They are the catalyst that we've been waiting for.
Their expertise, their leadership, and their extensive network of partners, NGOs, landowners, corporations. Texan by Nature is bringing industry, conservation, and communities together in ways that have never been done before.
Texan by Nature brings us more than just an idea or a goal. They're helping shape the way we think at HEB.
These folks that are boots on the ground and hands in the dirt, Texan by Nature has been giving them the boost that they need to scale, to do more of what they're doing so that they can have a greater impact.
If we go it alone, separately, in silos without collaboration, this will only limit what we can accomplish. Texan by Nature is that trusted broker that's bringing all of us together.
They're an organization that not only understands the conservation side, they're an effective, strategic partner for business. And we're talking about more than just best practices. Texan by Nature brought us a framework, a how-to to help us achieve success.
They've done more than just bring conservation and industry together. They've accomplished something even bigger.
What started as a simple mission is now an entirely new model for conservation. A model that not only could be replicated across the country, but around the world.
Bringing conservation and industry together is no longer a new idea. It's a reality. It's working right now, and it is the new path forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Laura Bush.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you all. Thanks. Good morning and welcome to the 2024 Texan by Nature Conservation Summit here at the Bush Center. Thank you all for joining us. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a familiar face who's been with us for the past several years, or you're just tuning into the live stream, I'm happy that you're here. Before we get started, I'd like to thank a few people. Thanks to our Texan by Nature board members. If you'd please stand. Our chair, Joe Crafton, Tina Buford, Robert Horton, Roxanne Newman, Jay Purvis, Jamie Shy, and David Smith. Thank you all very, very much. We're also fortunate to have many of our summit sponsors here with us today. Your generosity helps us fund Texan by Nature's work and helps us expand our reach across our large state. And for that, I'm grateful. Thanks to the Lyda Hill Philanthropies and the Trace Grace Foundation for supporting our partner work. To HEB and Enbridge for supporting our Conservation Wrangler initiatives. And to EOG Resources, as well as to my good friend Dee Dee Rose, who support this annual summit and our Conservation Wrangler program. A heartfelt thanks goes to our Sustainability Fund leaders, the Stillwater Foundation, Ray and Becky Engel, John Now, HEB, the Friedkin Group, Karen Hickson, Cullen Geiselman, Cynthia Pickett Stevenson, the Kinder Foundation, and Enbridge. And finally, thanks to our silver and bronze sponsors, we're proud to be supported by a diverse, committed group of environmentalists from all over our big state. When you see these leaders throughout the day, please join me in expressing our appreciation for making Texan by Nature's work possible. And if you'd like to view all of our sponsors and underwriters, or would like to get more involved, you can visit texanbynature.org. When I started Texan by Nature 13 years ago with my good friends Reagan Gammon and Catherine Armstrong, we wanted to do something big to take care of our beautiful landscapes and our rich natural resources. We wanted to give back to the state that had given us so much. Since then, Texan by Nature has implemented programs that have earned the respect of leaders throughout Texas and from other states as well. Through the Texan by Nature Conservation Partner Program, Conservation Wrangler Accelerator, Texas Water Action Collaborative, and Texan by Nature Certification, and the Texan by Nature 20, we've impacted over 7 million people, improved over 20 million acres, and touched all of Texas and our 254 counties. So I think we've done something pretty big. Everyone here knows that our natural resources benefit our economy and that spending time in nature is good for our physical and mental health. And now that I've retired and President Bush no longer has the weight of the world on his desk, we've made it a priority to spend as much time outdoors as we can. We spend long weekends at our ranch in Crawford, enjoying the slow sunsets and the endless starry skies. Since we inherited the big house, we relocate to Kennebunkport, Maine in the summer, where it's a lot cooler than it is here in Texas. Where the windows are always open and the air is always crisp. And we invite our children and grandchildren to join us. Recently, we welcomed our 5th grandchild, Barbara and Craig's baby boy, Edward Finn. Spending time with our family in nature is where we're the happiest. Today, during the second panel, you'll hear about the importance of building stewardship of our lands. Stewards could be a business, a home, or a landowner, or a community leader. Teaching the next generation about our land, how to protect it, respect it, plant it, and care for it is essential for the future of our state. Here at the Bush Center, we suggest that schools that come for field trips set aside time to spend in our native Texas park. Their kids can run through native Texas environments like the Blackland Prairie, which used to dominate the Texas region before it was developed. Rediscovery of this lost prairie was the inspiration for our landscape. Students can see seasonal wildflowers here. and have lunch in our outdoor amphitheater, or even observe our working beehives. Our beehives are operated by Hives for Heroes, which was one of the 2022 Texan by Nature's Conservation Wranglers. Hives for Heroes is a military veteran nonprofit that promotes honeybee conservation, a healthy transition from military service, and a lifetime hobby of beekeeping. I'm especially glad to see this connection between Texan by Nature, the Bush Center, and our veterans. And so today, I ask you to pretend that you're here at the Bush Center on a field trip and spend time in our native Texas park. When we have a break, get outside and walk through our 15-acre prairie. You can see the various habitats and hear the bees buzzing around their hives. And if you want, you can even taste some of the Bush Center bees' honey, which is for sale in our museum shop. It's time to get started. We have a great day of learning ahead, big ideas to discuss, new partnerships to make, and lots of lessons to take back home. We want conservation to be contagious, and thankfully, I think everyone here has caught the bug. So now I'd like to introduce the woman who we all know and admire, our fearless leader of Texan by Nature, Joni Carswell.
Well, hello. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. First of all, thank you, Mrs. Bush, for the opening remarks, the inspiration. You always get us in the mindset of doing better and being better. We are very deeply grateful for all that you do. Thank you. So for those I don't know, I am Joni Carswell. I'm the CEO at Texan by Nature. And I am thrilled to build on the welcome that Mrs. Bush gave to our 7th annual summit. And I know a lot of you were back with us when we started in 2018, and it's hard to believe that we're on 7 years of bringing everyone together, conservation and industry. Thank you for being here. Thank you again to the Texan by Nature board and to our partners and to our members who make this day possible. And also, thank you to the Texan by Nature team. I want to thank them by name because they do, as many of you know and work with them, they do incredible work all year long. So thank you to Taylor, Jenny, Karina, Aaron, Orvie, Caitlin, Kinsey, Jake, Abby, Tiara, Kat, Amy, Taylor, Faith, Eros, Layla, and Kellen. It is beyond a privilege to work with you guys each and every day. So each year when we come together, really daily throughout the year as I get to speak with each of you, I am incredibly inspired by the work that's being done across our state. I'm delighted by the progress that we're all seeing. I'm delighted by new partnerships that we didn't even imagine a decade ago. There are really big, exciting things going on. We are advancing conservation in ways, as I mentioned, that we hadn't imagined. We're shaping a future with the influential leaders and organizations in this room. And so I hope that you're starting to get into that mindset for the day. What are we going to learn? What are we going to take back? What is next year going to look like? Last year, if you were here and remember, we talked a lot about making the most of every single minute we had. And I can tell you that Texan by Nature has been very busy for the last approximately 500,000 minutes since we were together last in person. So we grew our conservation partner network to 172 partners. So welcome to any new partners that are here today. We released our first return on conservation report in June. We started industry cohorts and best practice sharing and collaborative goal setting with those cohorts. We worked with HEB to grow the Trees for Texans initiative. We increased the Texas Water Action Collaborative's impact with new members, millions in matched funding, and deeper measurement and reporting on projects. And we worked with so many of you to think bigger, to think bolder about conservation. So today, as always at our summit, we're focusing on the future of conservation. What's the next thing we need to do? How do we stay in front? How do we keep pushing? How do we make more progress? And with all the progress we're seeing, we feel that the future is big, but it needs to be bigger, much bigger. When we released our return on conservation report in June, and after we had done the analysis of the data that we put together from 2019, we found that roughly $639 million was spent on conservation that year in the state of Texas. And that yielded a really fantastic return of $2.8 billion. And while that investment sounds good, I mean, I'd take $639 million. I'm sure you could all think of things you would do, ranches you would buy, you know, there's a lot to do with $639 million. If you look at it in comparison to Texas's GDP, which in 2019 was $1.9 trillion, that's only 0.03%. It's not even a rounding error. So conservation needs to be bigger. Just think what would happen if we as a collective made a goal and focused on projects that would move forward and said we want to be at 0.5% of Texas's GDP, which is now $2 trillion. 0.5, not even a full percentage point, half a percentage point. $10 billion for conservation. Can you imagine what we could do with that? Be pretty incredible for our natural resources. So each year, actually every day, multiple times a day, the Texan by Nature team asks why. We ask a lot of questions, and for any parents of toddlers, I'm sorry if this is triggering for you, but I have some questions coming. So, why are we here? Why is this necessary? Why does this work? Why doesn't this work? All seems very basic, but these are the questions we ask every day, and these are the questions that led to our return on conservation report. We work to address the questions that would drive deeper understanding of conservation impact and bridge that gap between industry decision-making and funding and conservation opportunity. So when we plan the summit, we take a similar approach each year. We ask, why are we hosting a summit? Why will it matter? Why will this advance conservation? And our inspiration always comes from our partners and our members and our programs. And I can tell you, we're here today to advance conservation. We're here to drive new investment. We're here to help business members find new opportunities and think about conservation as part of your global sustainability strategy. We're here to work with the conservation community, all of our NGO partners, to raise the bar, to budget appropriately, to measure and report on the impact that our conservation has, so that we're changing the conversation and we're changing the trajectory of conservation in Texas and around the globe. We're here to build new partnerships and broader action. So today we'll discuss why systems thinking, stewardship, and change generation matter. We'll dive into projects that are working and examples that we can take home. We'll explore new partnerships, data, and modes of communication that are critical to advancing towards the future. We are so excited about the day we have planned for the speakers and for all of the questions that are going to come from the audience. So I want to wrap up with some questions for you. Why are you here? Of all of the places that you could be today, and I know there is a lot going on this week, like, why are you here? For new connections, for funding, for new opportunities, to learn something new, to be inspired, to lead the next wave of change for your organization? How will you take today and the reason that you're here and make it a step into the future? As I mentioned, we're here to advance conservation, to push the envelope, to create a future where our natural resources, our economy, and our health all thrive. So I invite you to get in that space today, ask a lot of questions. We'll have question time after each panel. so that you're all leaving here inspired with new tools to make change as you go home. So let's get started with the first panel. Taylor, Kathia, Mauricio, Christy, if you guys would join me, and we'll get going.
This land means a lot of things to many people. For my father, coming to this country looking for a better life, he found himself surrounded by these mountains. Being able to say, you know, it's not very different from where I grew up. That connected his heart to El Paso. So as I walk these trails, it's like I'm walking in the footsteps of my father and also all the generations that came before him. And to erase those footsteps and to take away those opportunities would be devastating.
Mucha gente ve el desierto y piensa que está vacío porque es gris y no hay vida, pero está lleno de vida, de pájaros, de animales y de plantas. Entender la importancia y el valor del desierto chihuahuense es muy importante porque nuestro futuro y el futuro de futuras generaciones depende de ello.
I think a lot of people think that going outdoors is a luxury. I know some families in our community that have 2 or 3 jobs. To be able to come outside is very hard. There's never time, or there's always an obstacle or a barrier why to go. And we need to work to change all of that. That's why I love to bring my son out here. It's not just a luxury, it's something that we need in our daily life.
The Frontera Land Alliance is a land trust that works in El Paso, Texas. We focus on the preservation of open natural areas, working farms, ranches, water recharge areas, and preservation of wildlife habitat for the northern Chihuahuan Desert. As our population and industry grow, there's also an increased need for open natural areas, working farms, and ranches. They bring in ecotourism, they bring in agriculture. We want to keep them open. It's important to keep the desert lands vibrant. They're very fragile. The impact it has is irreplaceable. To make sure these lands stay vibrant, we want to make sure that the community can connect to these lands to understand and see the importance of them. One way we achieve this protection and provide access is with a conservation easement. Conservation easements with the City of El Paso have allowed us to open up 1,300 acres for the public to enjoy through various recreation opportunities. The next step is to restore the lands. We'll work with the landowner, create a plan, and we'll come in and restore the trails. We do restoration with planting of seeds. We address erosion control, which may be from wind or rain, but you can't stop there. You need to educate the community.
People don't protect what they don't care about. First, they need to connect to the land. So that's why we have free guided hikes to the community. Regardless of the zip code, it's free of charge. We also do in-classroom visits, and we take kids to our nature preserves. You can see in their eyes how life-changing it is. They see lizards, and we see deer, and we show them the prickly pear, and they connect because their grandmas or abuelitas use it as nopalitos in their salads and in their foods. So it's just, you can see the connection that they're making.
It's hard to love something that you never experienced in your life. And I think this is why Frontera Land Alliance is making such a big impact in our city. I see old people, I see young people exploring something that they would have never really known about if it wasn't through Frontera Land Alliance. You sow one seed into one person, that's gonna grow into many, many generations. Y todo eso causa un gran impacto.
I see Frontera as the caretaker of the Chihuahuan Desert. That's why we want everybody to connect to the desert land so that they take ownership and they too want to connect and preserve it.
When we bring people out here, we see that they love it at first sight, and that is really critical as we're preserving it for the next generation.
I always say that faith without action is dead. Frontera Land Alliance is creating a snowball effect If we're able to connect nature to our hearts, it's going to bring a lot of healing. Conservation is not just something we preach because it's pretty to look at. We have to see the bigger picture, how it could be different tomorrow.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor Keys, the Director of Programs at Texan by Nature. For each panel today, the moderator will introduce all speakers, and they will share their presentations in succession. After the final speaker, we'll have time for live Q&A with all the panelists. We'll take questions from our live audiences and our virtual audiences as well. If you're virtual, please submit your questions via the YouTube stream. The theme of this panel is realizing systems value. The whole of a high-functioning system is greater than its parts. We've heard this throughout our lives, whether in team sports, corporate value chains, or even biological systems. But how do we make sure we maximize a system? How do we ensure a system is high-functioning, such that it does reach a greater value than its separate parts? Lots of the questions we ask at Texan by Nature every day. And why are we talking about system thinking and value today, and why does it matter? All too often in conservation conversations, we hear about a single species or a single issue. We lose sight of cause and effect, input and output, a view of the whole system. We see value articulated with a single variable or metric, resulting in lost opportunity because we reach a more narrow audience or don't fully make a case for a project. A system is defined by a set of things working together as parts of an interconnecting network. An interconnecting network, meaning a change in one part of a system, will impact not only output, but all parts of the interconnected network. Leading organizations are developing strategies and programs that view the future as a system inclusive of economic progress, natural resource care and restoration, and thriving communities. Planning for each of these parts as a greater part of the system yields sustainable growth, explores balancing development, and greater positive progress for each. This panel explores balancing development with conservation, profits with sustainability, and inputs with outputs of the full system. With our return on conservation analysis and interviews, we found that standardized language, trustworthy and accessible data, and budgeting with the full system in mind drives a difference for increasing system value. Our first panel will lay the foundation for today, putting us in the systems mindset. Today we'll hear examples of development and restoration initiatives, value chain strategy, and product decisions that take into account all inputs and outputs, people, materials, resources, transportation, all that are pieces of our interconnected network. During this session, we'll hear from Kathia Gonzalez, Development Director at Frontera Land Alliance, Mauricio Chavarria, Latin America Program Director, Global Water Challenge, and Dr. Christy Gomez, Senior Director of Product Safety and Regulatory Affairs with Mary Kay Inc. As a reminder, you can submit questions via the YouTube stream if you're joining us virtually. Please join me in thanking these presenters as we start the panel. Kathia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathia Gonzalez, and I'm the Development Director of the Frontera Land Alliance. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with such a distinguished group of business owners, community leaders, and my fellow panelists. I want to extend a special thanks to the team at Texan by Nature, and especially to Kaylin for working so closely with us this year. And of course, Mrs. Laura Bush for bringing us together today. I'll be discussing how the Frontera Land Alliance is working to balance conservation and development in the West Texas region, ensuring a sustainable future for our communities and natural landscapes. The Frontera Land Alliance is a nationally accredited nonprofit land trust organization dedicated to protecting forever open natural spaces, working farms, ranches, watersheds, and wildlife in the northern Chihuahuan Desert. In the heart of West Texas lies the binational city of El Paso, a gateway to the region's natural wonders. El Paso is located in the far west of Texas, bordering Mexico to the south and New Mexico to the north. It is part of the Borderplex, a tri-state region encompassing parts of Texas, New Mexico, and the neighboring Mexican city of Ciudad Juarez. El Paso is situated in the Chihuahuan Desert, one of the largest and most biologically diverse deserts in North America. The region is known for its stunning desert landscapes, mountain ranges, and unique flora and fauna. We receive approximately 6 inches of annual precipitation. And in this photo, you can see, and most people might assume that it's just one city, but actually we have Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, Texas. And while, yes, it's 2 cities, it is truly just one big community. We are connected with our sister city by international bridges, and it's one of the busiest border crossings in the world. And because of our unique geography, we have a cultural blend, a rich mix of American and Mexican traditions, a bilingual and a bicultural community. We're also an economic hub and a key player in the U.S.-Mexico trade, with 70% of all trade passing through the Borderplex region. Amidst its natural splendor, El Paso faces unique conservation challenges. The increase in urbanization and population growth, coupled with its semi-arid climate, presents a delicate balancing act between development and conservation. This dynamic environment calls for collaborative approaches to preserving the region's natural heritage. Taking care of the system takes many approaches. Frontera embraces the challenge of balancing urbanization and conservation through, first, conservation easements, which are a tool to preserve the conservation value of the land while enabling landowners to maintain ownership and set the terms for their property. Additionally, restoration and management, ensuring that protected areas remain vibrant, productive, and accessible through trail management, native plant restoration, and erosion control. Moreover, community engagement programs and educational events that are tailored to diverse cultural backgrounds and languages. These initiatives empower the borderland community to become informed stewards of the land. And finally, research. In collaboration with the University of Texas at El Paso, Frontera's nature preserve serve as areas for data collection and research on various topics, from climate change to the geosciences and even a moth study. This helps inform our conservation strategies and enhances the local knowledge. Conservation plus restoration. Frontera ensures long-term sustainability through conservation efforts that include preserving natural areas and restoring degraded ecosystems. We have helped protect over 8,000 acres and actively manage more than 1,400 acres. Our goal is to safeguard these lands while also working to enhance their ecological health through restoration. And we have seen that through restoration, this fosters a sense of connection and responsibility within the community, encouraging them to enjoy these natural spaces while playing an active role in their protection and their care. In the fall of 2022, Frontera launched a baseline data study to understand how urban nature preserves influence local climate patterns. This study is crucial because urbanization can significantly alter microclimates, and we aim to explore how preserving natural areas in urban settings can help mitigate these effects. Frontera installed 2 weather stations strategically at 2 of our urban nature preserves, and this provided valuable insights into how these natural spaces interact with and impact the surrounding urban environment. This data is essential for understanding our system's shifting baselines. Plus, research and data are key to demonstrating the impact and result of our efforts. And of course, community and education. Frontera tailors its educational programming and outreach effort to reflect the diverse cultural backgrounds and languages of our community. These initiatives empower the residents to become informed stewards of the land,
fostering a deep awareness of local nature preserves and overall natural spaces. By offering free environmental programming, we encourage the community to connect with the desert landscape, understand its value, and support local conservation efforts. In 2023, Frontera engaged over 6,000 community members through a variety of educational events, stewardship activities, and volunteer opportunities. One of Frontera's nature preserves, Napland, serves as the perfect example of a community-driven conservation. Napland Nature Preserve is a 353-acre site that became a protected space thanks to the neighbors advocating for its purchase by the city, ensuring its preservation. Frontera manages this land today, offering a space where both nature and community can flourish. And we recently had the chance to dive into new metrics about NAP's impact, thanks to our partners at Texan by Nature. And while we're not experts in this data just yet, we're incredibly excited and fascinated to see what 353 acres of desert land conservation looks like in terms of its environmental, social, and economic benefits. In closing, Frontera's work is truly a collaborative system, one that combines land, water, and wildlife, conservation, and community education. But our efforts can only succeed with the support and understanding of the community. Conservation happens when people recognize the value of these lands, and their active participation is essential to protect them for future generations. The Frontera Land Alliance's ability to safeguard the land, water, and wildlife of the Northern Chihuahuan Desert is thanks to the many public and private partnerships we have built. Along the way, we have learned that building authentic relationships, establishing trust, being transparent, and most importantly, truly listening to the community needs has been key to our success. We are excited for what lies ahead. It is encouraging to see a growing interest from businesses, schools, and community members who are committed to conserving natural open spaces, working farms, ranches, watersheds, and the unique biodiversity of this region. Together, we can continue to protect and celebrate these cherished lands. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here and to be exchanging so interesting topics. My name is Mauricio Chavarria, and I'm the Program Director for Latin America of Global Water Challenge. This organization is a coalition of leader organizations using our expertise and networks to achieve universal access to safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene, as well as protecting key watersheds around the world. At GWC, we believe achieving water requires collective action. And this is a lot about the learnings from my perspective. This includes managing water resources effectively at the local level, reducing gender inequalities, and ensuring that wash services are resilient to climate change. By tackling these key areas together, we can create a more sustainable and equitable water systems for all. As a trusted partners of companies, governments, civil society, community leaders, implementers, and impact investors, we catalyze co-investment, just like Texan by Nature, to expand meaningful change. Today, I'm here to talk about two partnerships that our organization is leading with two large corporations that you all know probably, and I'm going to introduce initially Cargill Currents. Launched in 2021 and managed by GWC, this is a community wash program focused on addressing local challenges of half of Cargill's 25 key watersheds around the world. This program is active in 8 countries, with plans to expand to more. In each region, it has a specific focus, whether it's watershed health, climate resilience, sustainable agriculture, or wash initiatives. Cargill Currents expanded its focus to North America, and currently we have projects in North Dakota, Kansas, California, Ohio, and of course, beautiful Texas, partnering Texans by Nature. Through the Playa Conservation Initiative, we're restoring groundwater recharging playas around Friona. We're also providing critical leak detection support to water utilities around Friona as part of the Texas Rural Water Association's Water Loss Prevention Program. Let me tell you something, this is a big issue in all the continent, water loss, non-revenue water. And doing this is helping to protect 5 million liters of water each year, benefiting communities in these key watersheds. Now, let me highlight a Cargill Current's impact in Brazil. Sorry, let me go back. This program also is being executed in 53 communities in Brazil across 7 states. In the Rio Xingu and Rio Tapajos regions, we're focusing on providing clean water to indigenous communities. Meanwhile, projects in the Rio San Francisco and Rio Paraná regions are enhancing water systems and infrastructure. Overall, Cargill Currents has positively impacted over 53,000 people in more or less 2 years. And now, let me introduce a second platform that I was honored to be able to co-create with the team of Coca-Cola and a network of organizations in Latin America. This platform is also looking to advance WASH initiatives while conserving and protecting key important areas. And this departs from Coca-Cola's Water 2030 strategy that has 4 pillars. Reduce water use, achieve circular economy, restore critical watersheds that are 60 in the world for them, support communities by improving access to safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene, and helping communities to adapt to climate change impacts. Now, let me just show you how they are thinking about acting collectively. In this map, I'm showing 100 critical basins that the CEO Water Mandate, an initiative that is a partnership between the Global Compact, the Pacific Institute, and a network of organizations, including Coca-Cola and Cargill, where they establish 100 watersheds around the world, and in blue you can see the specific watersheds that are critical to preserve and conserve here in America as a continent. In this map, you can also see the community access projects that we've been developing since 2021, and in green, the conservation projects that can be described in 3 categories: conservation and restoration, water for productive use, and finally, community access to water. Achievements in ballpark, we are nearly reaching 1 million people in a project with projects that started in 2021, and we have implemented 88 different projects in these watersheds. So let me just share a few thoughts about what we have learned implementing these projects. One, we need to team up for biggest impact, so in bigger impact. So that's why we are here. That's why we are happy to exchange knowledge and to be here to learn from you and to learn from what you're doing great here. And I'm going to take it to Latin America. That's my whole purpose. And I plan to make good connections with you, because the other thing that we have learned is that we need to share knowledge, and we need to share what we have failed. Most of the time we're like we don't share with things that went wrong. But in Latin America, we have failed several times, and we have learned, and we have improved our interventions by learning from those mistakes too. But we learned also from best practices, and I'm here to listen to other panelists and see what other organizations like you are doing here in Texas. 2, it is super important to create local capacity in the communities, and to identify leaders and to prepare them to take the post and move forward whatever we're going to start doing with them. 3, we need to show our impact, show your impact to others to attract donors. And I love this event because it is doing exactly that, and we believe in doing it too. And finally, involve young people. You mentioned it all, and you're going to see that we're all thinking about the future generations, including those kids in the communities that we're training to have access to different skills that are going to produce economic revenues for them to be able to pay for the services that we're implementing in those communities. Water is free, but electricity is not. Water is free, but treatment for water is not. So someone needs to pay it and needs to have access to resources to do it. Let me just remember how connected our challenges are. Our future depends on decisions we make now. Those decisions need to be bold and focus both on environment and economy. And this is why we are really honored to work with corporations like Coca-Cola and Cargill, and now to be partners of Texans by Nature. Real progress happens when sustainability and growth work together. Thanks for joining this important event, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you.
Well, howdy. I'm Dr. Christy Gomez. I'm with Mary Kay Inc. And it really is a pleasure to speak with all of you today and to be a part of this fantastic panel. I'm going to give a little bit different perspective, coming from the industry perspective, and how do we partner with some of these fantastic conservation organizations in order to really, realize that system's value. So, being from Mary Kay, I will start with a quote from Mary Kay Ash, because as I was working on this presentation, this quote kept coming back to me. The greatest pollution problem we face today is negativity. Eliminate the negative attitude and believe you can do anything. And really, that is something that is part of the culture of our corporation and is part of what makes our sustainability programs work. Because when you take a topic as large and complex as realizing system value, it's very easy to slide into the negative side of thinking. Because, let's just take water as an example. We can metric water. We can set up programs to reduce water usage, but when we talk about what are we going to actually do to help conserve or improve our water systems, our ecosystems that contributed to that, that's a big, complex problem that a single corporation just can't address. We appreciate this opportunity to kind of talk about some of the bigger systems programs that we've put into place. So over my years at Mary Kay, I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different departments, from environmental health and safety to supply chain, and I'm currently in research and development. I lead teams that are responsible for regulatory compliance, for quality, and for our product safety. And so I'm going to give a bit of a product spin on this and how all of these sort of line up with what we do with our product. All right, so at Mary Kay, sustainability is divided into 3 areas. We have our environmental sustainability, our social sustainability programs, and our economic sustainability programs. And all of them do interact with each and overlap with each other, but I'm going to give you guys a couple of quick case studies from each of these areas. All right, so we're going to start with social sustainability because, again, I am speaking on behalf of Mary Kay, where P&L doesn't just stand for profit and loss, but people and love. And so the people aspect of our sustainability programs is incredibly important. So from a product perspective, we have to remember that every single one of our product ideas starts with people. And so we get our sustainability ideas also from people. And so we work to make sure that, we're not just looking at social sustainability externally to Mary Kay, but also how we're setting up things internally for our employees. Because we do have the belief that every employee is a sustainability leader. So we have a couple of metrics here. One that I want to point out that's related to our gender balance. And so across the world in our 10 largest market, 57% of our leaders are women. And these are often in countries where women-dominated leadership is not the norm. So it's wonderful that we're able to, again, I saw in our introduction the use of the word balance so often, but having that gender balance is also very important to us as a company. Additionally, we make sure that the facilities that our employees work in, are also living out our sustainability values. So I have a photo here of the Richard R. Rogers Global Manufacturing and Research and Development Center, which is based in Lewisville, Texas. And so while this facility makes over 1 million products a day, it also is LEED certified silver. And then we have a manufacturing facility in Hangzhou, China that supports just our China market. It is LEED certified gold. So every day our staff are working in LEED certified buildings, or they may be walking into another site that's powered 100% by renewable energy. But we're trying to make sure that they're seeing that their space is also living out our sustainability values. And then lastly, engaging staff and what I would call some of the fun parts of sustainability. So this is a photo of a tree planting that we did in partnership with the city of Lewisville at Railroad Park. And so we did this last May. It was a great opportunity for our manufacturing employees to come out. We planted some very large trees that gave some much needed shade to that area. And so, it's another part of, again, showing our employees that we're living that sustainability so that they are also making sure sustainability is top of mind for them. All right, let's move over to environmental sustainability, which really is part of the core. So when we talk about, our products, we use a lot of forest resources. So that's our cardboard that's used in our shipping and logistics. It is the paperboard and the paper that are part of our product packaging. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is, beyond the early adoption that we had as a company of corporate recycling programs and utilizing post-consumer recycled content in our cardboard and paperboard and paper, we wanted to make sure that we're addressing the whole system. And so here are some examples that we partnered with the Nature Conservancy, the Arbor Day Foundation, I jumped ahead, on 3 projects last year. So with these, we're looking at not just, repopulating forest areas, but we're also looking at, are we doing it in the right way? Is the appropriate biodiversity addressed? Are these going to be meaningful and truly long-term reforestations? So we have a tree replanting in Georgia. In Mexico, this is actually conservation efforts of some monarch butterfly habitat. And then, of course, we helped with the restoration on the Dixie Fire in California. But over the years, Mary Kay has planted 1.4 million trees with the Arbor Day Foundation. It's a great way for us to reconnect, again, our use as a company of forest resources with how do we actually impact that larger forest ecosystem. All right. Now I want to move to the Nature Conservancy. All right, so we have had a 37-year partnership with the Nature Conservancy. And, the majority of that time, we really have had a very heavy focus on water. And, I bring that back to our products because the number one ingredient in cosmetic products is water. We need water as an ingredient. We need water in our production operations. We need water to run our facilities for our people. It is so incredibly critical to us. And so again, we of course have all of the, water saving, water reduction activities that would be expected, but we want to also look at how can we, again, help with that bigger picture and look at the system as a whole. So with this, we've partnered with the Nature Conservancy, and I'm going to list off some of the places that we've done projects with them. Australia, New Zealand, China, Hong Kong, Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, Mexico, and then, of course, in our backyard here of Texas. And so overall, we've contributed to 100 conservation projects. And these projects have helped communities adapt to sea level rise, coastal erosion, coral reef recovery, and sustainable fisheries. And right now, our focus with them is on super reefs, which is honestly just a really cool project. With the Nature Conservancy, Stanford University, and Woods Hole, we're working on these super reefs, which are actually very resilient to climate change and the changing water temperatures. And so we're working to understand, why do they have this genetic resilience? How can we learn from this to protect our other coral systems? Because, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia or the Florida Barrier Reef system doesn't have the same level of resilience as these super reefs do. And so it's a really interesting project, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the results that come from this. All right. Now I'm going to move over to economic sustainability. And this is something that's very near and dear to my heart because it's an idea that came from my team. We talked about how everybody is a sustainability leader. And this was an idea that came from one of our junior scientists that was working with Shea and looking at its supply chain. And she was like, we can do better, and we can actually positively impact the Shea supply chain. In 2023, Mary Kay joined the Global Shea Alliance, which is a nonprofit association with the mission of promoting sustainable practices and standards for shea in food and cosmetics. And shea truly is a wonderful cosmetic ingredient. It's very rich in vitamins A and E. It's moisturizing. It's wonderful. We have a lot of products with shea in them. And so we knew this was important to us as a company. Let's be part of the solution. So, across the shea belt of Africa, you have hundreds of thousands of villages that participate in the shea industry. And shea trees can live for hundreds of years, 200, 300 years. However, that also means they're very slow growing. So when you plant a new shea tree, it takes 15 years before it starts producing fruit. And really, it's more like 45 years. So just imagine that from an agricultural perspective, waiting 15 to 45 years before you can really start harvesting your crop. That's too long, and it leads to that temptation to fell the trees and to plant, faster growing crops like mango or cashew. And so with this, we're addressing root causes. And through Global Shea Alliance, we're able to train women collectors on business practices. We're able to help them with cooperatives and warehousing, provide grants and help them find additional grants to, improve their businesses, like having more efficient cook stoves. The other big piece is just to also advocate for these women and these collectors, on the international and national fronts. So it's a very heartwarming, program that is definitely a win-win for us as a company, because we're helping with the conservation and security of, one of the ingredients in our supply chain. So with that, I do want to thank you all for your attention, for me and for my other panelists. And I hope these insights, help you better understand how we all work together to realize system value. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathia, Mauricio, and Christy. We do have time for a few questions. Kenzie and Caitlin are walking around with microphones for those in person. And then if you're virtual, please submit questions via the YouTube stream. So raise your hand if you have a question. Folks walk around with the microphone. In the meantime, I will start with a question for Mauricio, if you don't mind. I love how you talked about learning from mistakes, and with all the companies Global Water Challenge works with, would love if you could share what are some of the biggest barriers to system thinking that you encounter in your role?
Thank you. One of the key barriers is that normally in the past, projects were thought out of the communities that they were made. Nowadays, conservation is super important to do it context-based and thinking about what the solutions for the nature are locally, and taking account all the values and the cultures of people. We have learned that working with ejidos in Mexico, that they have their own governance systems, working with tribal communities in Brazil, and also working with cities like Monterrey or El Paso, or different cities that think differently. It's different to treat with a water operator than treating with a community that's really lacking everything. So probably that's one of the barriers. Think about them before starting to create a standard recipe. There's no one size fits all in conservation, but the other thing that was mentioned before is dedicate time to report. And now we're talking about conservation and biodiversity. That's the other thing. We don't always report everything we're capturing. Our projects are focused mainly on water and water provided to communities. There are multiple co-benefits, like the programs you are offering, that can measure other impacts on women or in biodiversity, or carbon sequestration, everything. So reporting is also important. That's another barrier, that most of the time programs are very concentrated in reporting just one or two pieces that are of interest of the donors.
Thank you. Any questions from our audience? Okay. Let's move on to, Kathia. Question for you. How can we remove barriers for conservation groups to think as a whole system?
I think that basically encouraging partnership and knowledge sharing, facilitating collaborations between conservation groups, local governments, researchers, and community leaders can provide more perspectives, diverse perspectives, and encourage a more holistic approach to problem solving. And I think spaces like this one, where we have a diverse audience, can help us move towards that. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and Christy, would love to ask you, I loved your example of P&L just not being profit and loss, but people in love, and how the idea around the shade came from someone on your team. Could you tell us a little bit about your tips for gathering and instilling many perspectives in your planning and decision making, and what that process looks like? Which may be a big question.
That is a big question. So, you can't just go to a meeting and say, hey, everyone, in this meeting, I want you to have a larger perspective and think, big. It's really something that you have to embed within your culture. And so, and that means that, as leaders, we have to make sure that, sustainability is understood to be part of everyone's role, and that they are encouraged, because you can get a lot of ideas around sustainability from team members. Not every idea, it's the right time for that idea, but making sure that people always feel like they're valued and continued to be encouraged to think big, because, it's very easy, I think I'm rambling a little here, but it's very easy for folks to get discouraged to not think from that multi-perspective.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great. I've got a question.
Thank you. Question?
Yeah. So we had a question submitted, and it was for Kathia, but I think it would actually be a great question for everyone. If you could think about and share, what are the top 2 to 3 most important strategies for getting your stakeholders to care as much about conservation as you do?
Kathia, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I think that for us is education and awareness. For us, being a conservation group, it's really easy to see that, yes, we want endless land conservation, but thinking as a system approach and seeing how we're all interconnected, social, economic, and environmental factors, and just educating our decision makers so that they can see that interconnectedness. So more education and awareness, I would say. Yeah.
Wonderful. Mauricio?
I will say that very in line with what you were saying, Kathy, is co-creation between the stakeholders in an area. So taking into account all the voices, because the business has some interest in that area, but the communities may have another one, and the conservation organizations working there may have their own ones. Just to co-create plans, it's the key, for me, ingredient in order to have long-lasting projects. If not, you end executing just like a project for one of those stakeholders, and that's not what we need in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. Christy, anything to add?
So in addition to what they said around engagement and education, I think it's also showing the value, and I'll give an example. About 15 years ago, we were working with a plant manager, and we wanted to do more sustainability initiatives. And so, sustainability is kind of a data science. There's a lot of numbers to it, a lot of metrics. And when we showed him, hey, once we implement these metrics, and now we're going to be reducing your scrap rate, we're going to be saving you money, and you can actually show that value in something that's meaningful to them, and for this plant manager, it was reduction of costs, and that's what happened when we implemented the sustainability program at his facility, and then honestly, he became one of our biggest champions. It was fantastic.
That is fantastic. So important to bridge those barriers and communicate with stakeholders in a language that they understand. Any question over here in the middle?
I'll be the first one.
Thank you.
John Dorff with Infused Seed Ball. Question about carbon credits and the role that those play. A lot of this seems to be funded by corporations. Could you talk about this new market that's out there, whether it's carbon credits or also water conservation credits, and the role that plays in enabling you to do projects that might not otherwise be done?
Christy or Mauricio, do y'all want to talk about your experience there?
Super interesting. We're right now developing a few projects in order to educate corporations on how to combine what you were saying, the strategies for carbon sequestration, and how that strategy can lead to water conservation. And the challenge over there is that the carbon sequestration economy has been developed for a long time now, and it's really working, and it's a financial industry. It's like a lot of numbers happening and not really conservation itself. Water, on the other hand, is very local, and it takes time. As you said, 45 years to grow share. I didn't know it's incredible. So in that case, it's about companies need to embed just one strategy for climate and for environment, and that takes time because it needs to change the way they're doing it. I come from working in corporations that they started doing both and not communicating. And now most of them are trying to get to one path. So they are trying to create that market for water now. So how much does it cost a liter of water produced by a conservation project? How much do I have to invest to get 1 liter of water? How do I do it in an area that it's super dry and doesn't rain? How much carbon it's going to capture the new trees that you're planting over the years? So it needs to be embedded. It's not easy, but that's something happening right now. I hope that responds to your question. If not, you can.
Thank you. Question in the back.
Hi, my question is for Christy. Thank you all so much for speaking, by the way. It sounds like Mary Kay is focused a lot on sustainability at the corporate level, but I was curious if Mary Kay takes any steps to offer sustainability programs for their consumers to participate in.
So at this time, I don't believe we have any active consumer programs going on, but we have in the past. So for example, we had our eyeshadows and facial powders and things of that come in these plastic clamshells that were number 5 plastic. And at the time, they just were not readily recycled in municipal recycling streams. And so what we did was we created our own take-back plant program. We registered our manufacturing plant in Dallas as a recycling take-back facility and really partnered with our independent sales force, who got very creative with that take-back program. And it was incredibly successful for us in getting that plastic out of the hands of their customers back to us, where we could truly recycle it in bulk. And we did some incentives for them, such as planting trees for every so many numbers of cases that were sent back to us and things of that sort. At this time, that type of program doesn't make sense because our product portfolio has changed. Yeah, we've done it in the past, but we don't have any large initiatives right now at this time.
Question in the front.
Hi, thank you. Rob Price, Families and Nature. Question for you, Dr. Gomez. So, love the story about working through the supply chain, and wondering, especially the bigger the company, the more dependent you are on suppliers and vendors and their participation and their value alignment. Can you talk about what things you do, either contractually or culturally, with your suppliers and vendors to expand kind of what you're able to accomplish in conservation-wise?
Oh, definitely. So one of the pillars of our sustainability program is sustainable sourcing, and that has a heavy focus on our raw materials and on our packaging componentry. And so we very much encourage them to communicate with us on their sustainability goals, metrics, accomplishments through a platform called EcoVadis. That's been very helpful because we've got thousands of suppliers and just organizing it all. But then, a lot of it is also relationship-based and us communicating our expectations to our suppliers. So we do have a supplier code of conduct, and part of that code of conduct is sustainability, human rights, and, everything that goes along with that.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in with a question while you're moving over there, Kenzie, and want to do a round robin quick and just ask for all of you, the systems thinking it takes, there's a lot of components to it, as we talked about today, and would love to hear from y'all about what data and tools would be useful to drive system thinking in the work that you do. Kathia, start with you.
Yes, thank you, Taylor. I think that for us, the return on conservation index is something that we were needing. We were needing those metrics to share to businesses, to communicate that language of how, land conservation is important, but what's the economic impact? What's the social value? So I think that tools that quantify the economic value of ecosystem services can help communicate the benefits of conservation to stakeholders.
Wonderful. Mauricio, any data or tools?
No, when we're talking about conservation in our area related to water, there are several tools that we have found very useful. It's statistics about multiple effects in specific watersheds, rain, precipitation, fires, etc. And then how those statistics are shared locally with authorities to be able to plan ahead. In Brazil, just to give you an example, we have promoted large conservation projects that are doing several interventions. Between them, it's the fire prevention, because fires in Northeast Brazil or in California here or many other places are happening more and more. So preventing that is super important. And now there are a lot of companies and startups looking for ways to share that information very less costly and openly. And now that data set of points to connect them with fire brigades and with trained brigades in local teams and communities and municipalities, that's super important for conservation in some of the projects that we're leading.
So when it comes to data and tools, I do have to admit, so much of it is just Microsoft Excel, because it is a lot of numbers.
We love Excel. That's okay.
But really, I would want to hone in on how you analyze the data and how you look at it. We had a huge 1-year sort of water reduction challenge for all of our sites. But we had to make sure that we were metricing and setting up goals that are appropriate for each site. Because if you have a warehouse that is doubling its footprint, asking it to reduce its water usage doesn't make sense. Or a manufacturing facility that is adding onto its campus, that doesn't make sense. And so how do you metric by either, person occupying the building or analyze by, product produced, things of that sort. So, I would say you can collect a lot of data, but you also got to make sure you're analyzing it in a meaningful way.
100%. Thank you, guys. Question in the front. Thank you, Kenzie.
Hi there, Russell Rowe. I'm with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and with Families in Nature. I had a question for Kathia. I noticed part of the map you showed the Franklin Mountains and a shaded area showed maybe the Kastner Range, and I was wondering how your group interacts with the public lands out there and what your role was with the Kastner Range, our national monument.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yay for Kastner. Kastner was a community initiative. After 52 years of community effort, it was designated last year, March of 2023, as a national monument. And I believe it's the third in Texas. Frontera was one of the many partners that was leading that effort. And now that it's designated as a national monument, the managers of the land is DOD. So the Army is the one that are going to take the ownership and stewardship of Kastner Range. Currently, it's closed to the public. It's over 6,000 acres. And DOD are doing the restoration and planning the access for the community. And the reason that it's closed is because in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, 60s, 65s, it was used as an open range. So right now it has an exploded ordinance, and that's why, yes, it's designated as a national monument, and the community is happy because it will just bring further open natural space and also provide a natural corridor with Napland Nature Preserve, the Franklin Mountain State Park, and Kastner Range. But because of the unexploded ordinance, they have to do remediation and restoration efforts. So Frontera is just happy to be part of the process, and we're hoping that in the near future it will be accessible for the community to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, so we'll do a quick rapid fire round robin. So what is one thing that you recommend leaders to discuss or implement to drive systems thinking within their organization? Christy, we'll start with you. What is the one thing?
I would say, to also encourage people to learn things outside the scope of their normal job. Because when you know more about the natural environment, that's what leads to all the connections that, bring us the innovative, conservation ideas and sustainability projects.
Thank you. Mauricio, the one thing?
aligned to what Christy said, it's education. Most of the past year and a half, we have been educating executives across Latin America to understand environmental concepts and how conservation impacts their businesses, but the communities where they operate, and that's licensed to operate for them. So I think education of stakeholders key for that.
Kathia?
I think that one thing that I would recommend leaders to discuss or implement to drive system thinking will be to adopt a holistic approach to problem solving. Just emphasize, leaders should emphasize the interconnected, how everything is intersectional, how ecological, economic, and social systems are intertwined. For example, when we do land conservation and just about nature preserve, it's not only about protecting land, but ensuring water quality and providing recreational spaces so that community can have a better physical and mental state.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your questions and engagement in the first panel, Realizing System Value. And big thank you to Kathia, Mauricio, and Christy for sharing today. We'll take a break and come back together at 1 p.m. Central Time for the afternoon panel. So if you're on the live stream, make sure to join back then. And then also, questions throughout the day, please submit them on the YouTube stream as well. For those in person, lunch will be served as you exit the auditorium to the left, or I guess right outside, and then there's tables to the left. And we'll see you back at 1 p.m. for the next panel, Cultivating Stewards.